What has God promised you? Let's see. Presence, power, miracles, wisdom, and vision. So how do I know? How do I know? Desire, calling, wisdom, revelation. What do I want? Question mark. Goals, dreams, visions. Own your promise. Own your mission. Own your breakthrough. Own it. That's what we're going to talk about today. Own your breakthrough. Listen, I think we've already done that this morning. I think God preempted the sermon with what it looks like to live it out. Most of the time we preach a sermon and then we hope people will go apply it and put it into practice and live it out. I think God just flipped the script on us this morning. He just flipped it around and said that this is what it looks like. This is what it's going to look like when you live your breakthrough, when you own your breakthrough, when you just step into it and I just open up the floodgates and pour it out into you. This is what it feels like. This is what it's going to look like. This is what you can live in every single day of your life. You see, I think sometimes we compartmentalize our lives so much to the point where we're just schizophrenic. We don't know which person we really are. I'm telling you that when you stand in the presence of God and you worship Him, that is the person you were truly created to be. Now, you take that same attitude, that same feeling, that same experience that you receive when you stand in a service like this and you worship the Lord and you praise Him and you experience Him, and you take that into every area that you walk into throughout your life, and you walk about 6 inches off the ground all the time, because the world doesn't own you, because you don't belong to the world. You are in it, but you are not of it. And when you're in it, but you're not of it, you transcend it. You hover over it. And the things that, the limitations, the rules that the world are bound to, you are no longer bound to, because God has called you to a higher place and a higher purpose. And it's in that higher place and higher plan, higher purpose, that you get to that you get to step into the unseen. You get to call those things which are not as though they are. You get to live by faith in a way that sets the captives free, that releases power and things into your life. You get to confront lies with truth. Listen, there's nothing that will cause a lie to have to turn tail and run away faster than proclaiming the truth. You can believe a lie, and when you believe a lie, you empower the liar into your life, and you give him power into your life so that whatever that lie is, it takes over, it controls. And I'm telling you now that when we walk in the Spirit, when we stay in this place, when we stay connected with God, when our praise and worship creates that conduit between us and God, then we stay connected to the source that releases us from the power of the lies. And it's in that truth that we get to experience. That we get to experience what God has for us. God has called you because you are a Christian, you are a believer, you are a follower of Christ, not because you decided to be, but because God called you out. He plucked you out. He reached in and grabbed hold of you and brought you to Himself. And now you are there. And some of us, listen, I was there very reluctantly for a very long time in my life. It's a devastating way to live. It's a horrible way to live. Because here's what I know beyond anything else, that when God has reached out and grabbed you and called you and pulled you into His life, you can sit there and try to fight against it. You're not going to win, and you're going to be exhausted all the time. If you will simply surrender into his will, surrender into his hand, surrender into his grasp. The moment you surrender into his grasp is the moment you become powerful. It's the moment that the power that was pulling against you all of a sudden shifts and comes through you. Can you feel that? Can you feel that thought? Like, have you ever just grabbed a hold of somebody and tried to pull against them? And then the moment that you let go, that you surrender into that, it just goes. There's a flow that happens there. It's in that moment. It's in that place where strongholds get broken, where obstacles get plowed under, where walls that once held us bound go crumbling around us. And we step into the destiny that God has called us to. We step into the power. We step into the victory. We step in. But there's a key. There's a key to it all. The key is faith, and the faith is activated by action. Faith without action is dead. Faith without works is lip service. It's of no value. It's not until you begin to step. We've been using the story of Joshua leading the nation of Israel out of the wilderness and into the promised land as kind of the backdrop of where we just believe God is calling us. I just believe that everything that was given to us in the Old Testament was given to us so that we could see more clearly and understand more clearly what we're moving into. It wasn't just a history lesson. Okay, it wasn't just given to us so we could see what happened there and then. It's given to us so that by knowing what happened there and then, we can understand and step into and actually experience and benefit from what's happening here and now. And if we miss that, then we waste 3/4 of the Bible that we've been given. So Joshua takes over for Moses after Moses died, and God calls Joshua and speaks into his life and says, now Joshua, you've been a man of faith all this time. You believed from 40 years ago, you believed that we should have the promised land. Joshua and Caleb were the only two spies that went in and actually saw the promised land and knew that they should have it, came back, and they said, no, we should take this promise. We should claim this promise. We should step into this promise. And the other 10 spies, they're like, no, they're too big, they're too scary, there's too much there, there's too much fear, there's too much this, they're going to squash us, we're like grasshoppers in their sight. No, we can't do that. And then they go spreading rumors, turning the people against Joshua and Caleb and Moses. And so finally God says, fine. If you have no faith in my promise, if you're unwilling to step into my promise, then you're going to stay here and you're going to wander for 40 years, because that's what fear does. Fear causes you to wander aimlessly, going nowhere. Lots of activity, no progress. But faith, the moment faith is activated, is the moment that you begin to make progress. And so God comes to Joshua and says, now you're going to lead these people. And I want you to be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified. Do not be discouraged. You are going to lead these people, and everywhere your foot steps, you are going to possess that land. You're going to own every piece of land that you step on. And so Joshua gathers the people. He wastes no time. He gathers the people and he says, it's time. We're going to go. And he sends some people in to check it out. And that's the story of Rahab. We're going to skip over that story today, but we're going to come to the next story where they come back and they say, okay, it's there. It's ready. It's time. Let's go. Let's do it. And they start moving. And as they start moving, boom, they hit an obstacle. They hit an obstacle called the Jordan River. You see, we look at rivers and things like that, and it's no big deal. Because we have bridges, we have boats, we have ways of getting across that we've devised, that we've come up with. Well, at that point, there was no bridge over the Jordan River. There was no way to get across, especially not where they were, across from Jericho. There was no way to cross, and it was in flood stage because it was harvest time. So the Jordan River wasn't just a little trickling stream. It was a roaring, raging river that was at flood stage. Have you ever seen the Susquehanna at flood stage? It's pretty scary looking, especially if you have to get across it without a bridge. So they come to this river that is raging, that is at complete, full-blown flood stage, and they stop. And I just want to share this story with you in Joshua 3. It says this: early in the morning, Joshua and all the Israelites set out for Shittim and went to the Jordan, where they camped before crossing over. I'm pretty sure that at that moment, if Joshua would have said, okay, we're going to camp here before crossing over. All right, Josh, I hear you. Don't you think that there was some in the crowd that were saying, dude, have you looked at that water? Like, have you seen that river? Do you see what you're talking about? Do you see this obstacle in front of us? Do you see this raging, roaring river that is right there? Verse 2, after 3 days, the officers went through the camp, giving the orders to the people. When you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, and then the Levitical priests carrying it, you are to move out from your position and follow it. Then you will know which way to go, since you have never been this way before. But keep a distance of about 2,000 cubits between you and the ark. Do not go near it. He says, then you will know, verse 4, then you will know which way to go, since you have never been this way before. What do you mean? They're following the ark. The ark represents the presence of God. The ark represents God in their lives, because that's how God revealed himself in that moment, in that time. He represented himself in the ark, and the Levitical priests would carry the ark, and the ark carried the presence of God. And the key was to go where God goes. That key hasn't changed, by the way. That key hasn't changed, because here's what I know. Where you're supposed to go, where God is calling you to go, where God is calling me to go, where God is calling us to go as a church, as families, collectively, we have not been there before. And the only way we're going to get there is for us to follow God there. It is to follow God's presence there where he leads us. That's how we're going to know. Verse 5, Joshua told the people, consecrate yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do amazing things among you. Consecrate yourself. What does that mean? It means give yourself completely to God. It means surrender yourself to God. It means confess anything in your life that you need to get out before God. It means to lay it all down, to repent, to turn away from it, to give it all up to him, because in that posture, in that moment, boom, God will begin to do amazing things. And those amazing things are what lead to the breakthrough. Joshua said to the priests, take up the ark of the covenant and pass on ahead of the people. So they took it up and went ahead of them. And the Lord said to Joshua, today I will begin to exalt you in the eyes of all Israel, so they may know that I am with you as I was with Moses. Listen, here's what I believe, that we as the church, that we as the children of God, God is saying to us, I am going to begin to exalt you. I'm going to begin to lift you up as the children of God, as the people of God, as the leaders that He has put here on this planet to lead people into the kingdom. God will begin to exalt you in your life, to lift you up, to make things happen in your life, and give you success, and give you a position, and give you a status that will cause people to look at you and say, what is going on? What is happening? Why do you have success where others are failing? Why are you effective where others are ineffective? Why do you have friends where others just have people that turn on them? It just reminds me of Joe. Wednesday night, man, if you haven't been here the last few Wednesday nights, you're just missing it. I feel bad for you. Anyway, Joe was sharing on Wednesday night that one of his friends at church just sent him a big long text and said, Joe, I don't know what's going on. I just want friends like you have. Because Joe's in Elevate. He's a teenager. He goes to Eastern. Yeah, Elevate. Yeah, listen. And he's just demonstrating. He's just walking it. He's just living it out right there in front of all of his kids or all of his friends at school. And they're starting to. He's doing what I say when I say live a questionable life. Joe is living a questionable life. He's living a life where friends around him are looking at him and saying, what are you doing different? Like, what is wrong with you? What is going on with you? Because that's what I want. I want some of that. I don't know what it is. I don't know what to call it. I don't know what it looks. I just know that I want it. And it's when we begin to live that out and to experience that it changes everything. You don't have to go cramming it down people's throat when you just live it out. Because when you live it out, the Spirit of God is powerful. And people pay attention. Tell the priests who carry the Ark of the Covenant, when you reach the edge of the Jordan waters, go and stand in the river. Remember, this is a river at flood stage. When you get there, just go on and get in it, right? I'm pretty sure these priests might have been rednecks. I'm not sure, positive. I mean, they've lived in the desert for a long time. You know, you get pretty rough out there. You get, and Matt reminded me the other day, famous last words of a redneck, watch this. These priests are about to, all right, Josh, watch this. Here we go. Joshua said to the Israelites, come here and listen to the word of the Lord your God. This is how you will know that the living God is among you, and that he will certainly drive out before you the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Hivites, the Perizzites, the Girgasites, the Amorites, the Jebusites, the termites, whatever. He's about to get rid of them all. See the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and all the earth will go into the... Did you see? The ark of the covenant of the Lord of all the earth will go into the Jordan ahead of you. He will go into the Jordan ahead of you. So when the people broke camp to cross the Jordan, the priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant went ahead of them. Now the Jordan is at flood stage all during harvest. Yet as soon as the priests who carried the Ark reached the Jordan and their feet touched the water's edge, the water from upstream stopped flowing. It piled up in a heap a great distance away, and at the town, that town, and so it didn't go to the Dead Sea anymore. It stopped. So the people crossed over opposite Jericho. The priests. Yeah, this is big. Listen, this is a big deal right here. The priest who carried the ark of the covenant of the Lord stopped in the middle of the Jordan and stood on dry ground while all Israel passed by until the whole nation had completed the crossing on dry ground. This is big. This is big. Watch this. I just want to show you something. Things that in this story that I just believe represent right where we are right now today. I believe that Joshua and the nation of Israel represent you and me and us collectively, the people of God, the church, in this moment for such a time as this. This is our Kairos moment right here that we get to rise up and we get to become what God has called us to be, just like he did there when he lifted Joshua up and the nation of Israel up to go in and to possess the land. This is the moment that I believe we have been called to just reflect, to do exactly what they showed us they did so we would know what we do. Secondly, the Ark of the Covenant, I've said it, is the presence of God. It is how God revealed himself to us. How does God do that in us? It is the Spirit of God, the Holy Spirit that is within us, that we are now the Ark of the Covenant. We are the temple of God. God lives in each one of us. So when we take him into the world, we have the presence of God with us and we follow his lead. The Jordan River is the obstacle between you and your destiny. The Jordan River is whatever is blocking you from your breakthrough, whatever's in your way, whatever that challenge is, whatever that thing is that you just can't seem to conjure up enough faith to get past, to get through, to get over. That's the Jordan River in your life. The promised land is the dream and the goal and the destiny that God has promised you. Listen, we've been talking about this a long time because I believe this is where we are. This is not just so we can get another sermon done and pass through another Sunday and check the block. This is because this is the time. This is the time that God has called us as a people to rise up and to move into the promise that he has called us toward. So with those things in mind, I just want to talk to you about 5 steps in owning your breakthrough. 5 steps that you will have to step into, that you will have to possess to be able to own your breakthrough. Number 1 is identify what you want. What do you want? You have to know what you want. If you don't know what you want, how will you know when God gives it to you? How will you know when it's there? How will you know? If you don't know what it is you desire, how will you know when it's yours? So in the words of the famous prophets, Spice Girls, tell me what you want, what you really, really want. You got to know what you want. It's one of the most important questions you'll ever answer. What do you want? What has God put in you? What is that thing that he has burned your heart with? He has branded on your soul that says you are meant for this. This is your destiny. What is that freedom that God has called into you? That thing that's been clogging you up and holding you back. And God says, this is freedom. You got to want the freedom from that thing. How are you going to get past that thing? You got to want the freedom more than you want that thing. Whatever that thing may be in your life. What do you want? There's a great story in Mark chapter 10. I'm just going to read it for you quick. It says this: when Jesus then they came to Jericho. This is interesting a little bit because they're coming to Jericho from the other side of the river in this story in Mark 10, Jesus' day. The Israelites are moving toward Jericho from the opposite direction, across the river. I just like stuff like that, but that's just me. All right, so he says they came to Jericho. As Jesus and his disciples, together with a large crowd, were leaving the city, a blind man, Bartimaeus, was sitting by the roadside begging. When he heard that Jesus of Nazareth, that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to shout, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Here's the blind man named Bartimaeus. He's been sitting there begging. That's probably what he's done for many, many years, and as long as he's been blind, and he's probably got his spot, and people know that he's there, and he's sitting there, and Jesus is walking by, and he begins to, "What's going on? I hear something happening. What's happening?" And somebody says, "It's Jesus of Nazareth." And he says, "This is my moment. This is my moment. I can't miss my moment, because if I miss my moment, he'll be gone. He'll be on past me, and I won't be able to get his attention. This is my moment." So he starts yelling, "Jesus, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Have mercy on me." And the people around him, the naysayers, you got people around you that will try to naysay you out of your progress, out of your breakthrough. Here's what happened. It says, many rebuked him and told him, "Be quiet." But he shouted all the more, "Son of David, have mercy on me." And Jesus stopped. Listen, that little 2-word phrase right there changed everything for him. Jesus stopped. He's shouted, he's yelling, people are, "No, you don't need to call on Jesus. You need to be quiet. Don't bother. You just need to stop. You need to stop believing. You need to stop waiting for that it's never going to happen. It didn't happen for me. It's not going to happen for you." No, you need to shout. You need to keep on shouting, and you need to keep on hollering, because here's what I know. Jesus is going to stop. He's going to stop, and he's going to come, and he's going to look you in the eye. He's going to look you in the eye, and when he looks at you in the eye, you need to be ready for what he's going to ask you. Because here's what he asked him. Jesus stopped and said, "Call him." So they called the blind man. "Cheer up, on your feet, he's calling you." Throwing his cloak aside, he jumped up to his feet, and he came to Jesus. Verse 51 says this, "What do you want me to do for you?" What if Jesus were to just walk right up in your mug right now? Just like get right up in your face and say, "What do you want me to do for you?" What would you ask him for? What would you say? How would you answer the question, "What do you want?" The blind man said, "Rabbi, I want to see." Duh. I want to see. I'm blind. Do you think Jesus didn't know he was blind? Do you think Jesus doesn't know what you need? Do you think he doesn't already know what you want? He put that desire in your heart. The reason you want it is because he made you want it. Here's how Jesus does it. There's no like, "Oh, Holy Father, I beseech thee." I don't know. He doesn't do none of that. He doesn't go into all that crazy theatrics. I mean, I don't care about that. I mean, if that's the way it happened, that's okay, but that's not what Jesus did. Here's what Jesus did. He said, "Go. Go on then." If he were down, he might say, "Go and get." Go. Get to stepping. Step into your breakthrough. Step into your sight. Step in. He says, go, Jesus said, your faith has healed you. Immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus along the road. Jesus said, go. And what the blind man heard was, come, follow me. Because when Jesus says go, what we do is we come follow him. Number 2, believe that what you want is God's will for your life. Do you believe that what you want is what God has told you to want, is what God has planted into you to want, to desire, to hunger and thirst for? Why do you want to do what you want to do? Do you want to build a big business, a big company, a big organization so that you can give a lot of people jobs and you can raise up a lot of families? You can provide security for family after family after family, and families can be happy and raise their kids and be able to have the freedom that they need to be able to accomplish what they... Well, that sounds like a God dream to me, because that's what God does. Is your dream to be healthy, to be able to get up and move and to do and to go and to have energy and to have the vitality that you want so that you can go out and make a difference in somebody else's life, and you can have energy and not be grumpy all the time because you're all unhealthy, so you can go and do? That sounds like a God dream to me. That sounds like something that God probably wants for you. You just got to believe it. Because when God wants something for you and you start saying, well, it's going to take a lot of hard work and a lot of sacrifice, a lot of this and a lot of that, you just don't listen to that. Just lean on God's want for you, right? Just you might find days in the week that you just don't want it as much. Well, in that moment that you don't want it, just lean on God's want it for you. That's bad English, but it gets the point across. Lean on God's want it for you. Lean on God's faith for you. Joshua knew that it was God's will that they take the promised land. He's known it for 40 years. He knew it. The blind man, Bartimaeus, knew that it was God's will for him to be able to see. How do we know he believed it? Number 1, he believed it enough to ask for it. Ask and you shall receive. James says, you have not because you ask not. Do you have enough faith to ask? Number 2, he believed it enough to receive it, to take hold of it, to accept it. I believe that God has given you lots and lots of miracles that you just didn't receive. I believe God has given me lots and lots of answers to my prayer that I just didn't step into. Number 3, believe that God is working on your behalf to bring it to pass. Romans 8:28, if you don't have it memorized, you ought to memorize it if you're one of these people that it's talking about. What are one of these people? Those who love God and are called according to his purpose. If that's you, then you ought to know the first part of that verse by heart. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. If you know that you love God and you've been called according to the purpose, then you need to believe, you have to believe that in all things he is at work for your good. Do you believe that? Or do you say, well, I don't know. I mean, he's busy. Like, my little things ain't that big. No, your little things ain't that big. He's that big. He's too big for your little things to be any kind of bother for him. He spoke the universe into existence with a word. Do you think your little problem is really an issue? Number 4, believe that in God's view, it is already a reality. This last what I have circled down there just kind of popped into my head when I wrote the point down, when I wrote the first thing down. It just popped into my head. God doesn't reveal things to you that he can't already see. I don't have thoughts like that. God gives me thoughts like that. Just walk around and marinate on that thought for about the rest of your life and see what it does to you. If God is calling you to something, if God is promising you something, if God is creating a desire and a hunger and thirst in you for something, to go after something, to pursue something, it's because he already sees that something in reality. We just get to step into it. We just get to walk into it. And then number 5, believe enough to step into it. Have you gotten that point across? Step into it. When the priests of Israel were told by Joshua, this is what the Lord said, go step into the obstacle. Go step into the Jordan River and it will, listen, those priests had a choice to make at that moment. They had a choice to make at that moment. They could have said, like their predecessors before, ooh, no, that's kind of scary. I don't think we're going to do that. You know what we'll do? We'll go right up to the edge and we'll have us a prayer service. That's what we religious people do. We go have us a prayer service, right? We'll bring it to the Lord, right? Stuff like that. We say stuff like that. Joshua said, this is how you will know that God is with you. When you step into the obstacle, it's going to part. It's going to stop. It's going to, listen, they didn't part the Jordan River like they did the Red Sea. God stopped the Jordan River. He shut it down. It was at flood stage, and the moment that they stepped into it, it stopped. If they had never stepped into it, this I believe to the bottom of my soul, if they had never by faith stepped into it, they would still be on the wrong side of the Jordan River. They would be buried there. Their bones would be in the ground there. Because that's where they would have been stuck. And until you step into the obstacle that God has called you, until you step into the challenge, until you step into the destiny, until you step into the calling that God has put in front of you, you will be stuck on the wrong side of it. But mark my word, listen to the words that are coming out of my mouth. The moment you step into them, the moment you step into it is the moment that you will have clear passage across it. Can you believe that? Can you receive that by faith? Can anybody just say, I? Okay.